there's a show on C-SPAN called Washington Journal, and Ann Coulter showed. If you don't know Ann Coulter, she's a conservative commentator. She's a prolific author who's been writing literally since the days of the Clintons. Now, almost 30 years of authorship and presence in the public sphere around issues of American politics. Well, while she was on C-SPAN, she said that Vice President Kamala Harris was not a foundational Black. She said this after she was asked to respond to Donald Trump and his claim at the NABJ that Kamala Harris had just turned Black. She made a comment earlier saying, look, I agree with Donald Trump. He was right to say that. And they said, do you still feel that way? And she didn't just double down. Y'all girl, Ann Coulter tripled down. I want y'all to hear exactly what Ann Coulter said. Check this out.
Well, I write about this a little bit in my book, Mugged, about racial demagoguery, and also in Adios America about immigration. And that is the important point he should have made is that the entire purpose of affirmative action, set-asides, civil rights laws that limit constitutional rights to freedom of contract, freedom of association, all of that was to make up for the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. So unless these benefits are going to, roughly defined, foundational Black Americans, the descendants of American slaves, you've taken away the whole purpose of this. And that is exactly what's happened once we got this huge load of immigrants. Now, a Thai who arrived on Wednesday will get an advantage applying to college, applying to corporations over a heterosexual white male in particular. That's the biggest hate group, but any white American. And all of the civil rights laws have been, and affirmative action and so on, have been twisted into just anti-white hatred and open, egregious discrimination. So to make the point that Kamala isn't a foundational Black American. I'm always pointing out to Black people, hey, have you noticed Indians are getting all the good diversity jobs? What did we do to Indians? We didn't enslave them. I mean, most of these immigrants coming in, most are from 90% of legal immigrants are from the third world. And mostly we've just run around saving them from earthquakes and tornadoes and coups and starvation. They owe us, we don't owe them. But to switch from the concept of integration and civil rights for Black Americans to this BS-y diversity, it's nothing but discrimination against white people. And that point should be made not just.
So this is complicated. You talk about horseshoe theory, when you when you get to the political extreme, sometimes you find yourself coming back together again. I mean, somebody said in the group for the first time in life, Ann Coulter and Dr. Umar agree. Look, just because Ann Coulter said it don't mean it's wrong. Though it's still, I think, not fully there and ultimately still lightly dipped in racism. So let me break down for you first what's happening here. First, the term itself, foundational Black, is not a term that Ann Coulter made up. There is a movement called FBA that you will see on the internet and in real life, Foundational Black Americans. It's a pro-reparations movement led by Tariq Nasheed. Ann Coulter also said descendants of American slavery. So she was referencing FBA, but she also referenced ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, a movement started by Yvette Carnell, who has been on the show, and also Antonio Moore, who hasn't been on the show, but who's welcome to come on at any time. And in both cases, and those groups are not the same. Those groups do not identify with each other. Those groups do not bang with each other. Those groups see have talked about, are very adamant about saying, don't put us in the same breath, don't put us in the same sentence. I'm not putting them in the same sentence. I'm saying Ann Coulter mentioned both of y'all, so y'all got to accept it. Y'all been both brought up. And those groups talk about the importance of reparations, but not for all Black people in the United States, but for those who actually built the American empire through the exploited labor that their ancestors put out through the project of American slavery. In other words, if your ancestors were enslaved Africans in the United States, then you built this American empire, and therefore you deserve reparations here. What Ann Coulter is saying is the same thing that they've been saying, which is, yeah, there are other groups here, and they deserve rights and freedoms, but we have to think about ADOS as a specific thing, or FBA as a specific thing, and not conflate that with Black people writ large. Yes, there was slavery in the Caribbean. Yes, there was slaves. You know, the Atlantic slave trade didn't just stop in the United States, right? The boat stopped a lot of places. So lots of people are descendants of slaves, but maybe not American slavery. And so therefore, CARICOM should be addressing Haiti or PR or Jamaica. That would be their argument. That is their argument. Certainly ADOS's argument. That Carnell has said that very argument right here, and I'm inclined to agree with her. So we can talk about collective Blackness, but don't pretend that every Black person is the same. And Coulter has long stated that she thinks that the diversity moves and the DEI moves and the affirmative action moves and even the reparations moves have somehow now encapsulated such a wide net that the people who deserve it aren't getting it, right? She's Ann Coulter said to me personally, like, yo, like, you, Mark, your grandparents or great grandparents were enslaved. Why are you getting the same rights and freedoms as somebody who just came here yesterday? Or she gave this example, somebody who's Thai or Indian. I understand her argument. I agree with the argument that, again, we need to think about descendants of American slavery as our own kind of group who have a particular justice claim here in the United States. But I also believe, I'm speaking for no one but me right now, I also believe that we also have to have a Pan-African sensibility. I also believe that we have to recognize the connectedness of us and understand that our struggles aren't purely rooted in our relationship to American slavery, but also a project of white supremacy that is global, and a regime of imperialism and neocolonialism here in the United States that doesn't distinguish between where you came from. In other words, when the police come down and shoot us, when the teachers suspend our babies, when the mental health institutions deny us or criminalize us or demonize us, they don't know whether I came from Haiti or Jamaica or Jamestown, Virginia. There's a way that white supremacy has to be fought as a transnational project, not as a domestic one. So we have to be able to hold space for both of those things. So when Ann Coulter said, well, Kamala Harris is Black, of course she's Black, but she's not a foundational Black. She's not from the legacy of slavery. Don't let her buy in on your tradition. She's not genealogically incorrect. But the two things I would ask is, one, what is her intention for doing it? Is Ann Coulter doing that because she wants to protect the descendants of American slavery, or is she simply trying to break down and divide us? What does it mean for and this person said this, are we allowing our open enemy to divide and define us? Ann Coulter should not be defining and deciding who a foundational Black is or not. And even if she's just echoing the words of others, let the FBA people say that. Let the ADOS people say that. Ann Coulter saying it. It's not wrong because she said it. She could be 100% right on the analysis, on the observation, but the purpose to which she's putting that observation is deeply dangerous. And second, we have to ask ourselves, not just what's the intention of it, but what's the consequence of it? If the consequence of this is not just to point out the kind of genealogical truths of Kamala Harris's background, but instead to ultimately to say she's Black, but she ain't really Black. She's Black, but she ain't Black. What does that do? How does that serve us? And how does that normalize this idea that she has to meet a certain kind of litmus test of Blackness in order to earn our support or our vote, at the same time that a white man is getting endorsed and supported by those same Black people without any criteria? And again, there's plenty of things to criticize Kamala Harris for. Look in Palestine. Look in Gaza in particular. Look at reparations. Look at criminal justice. Plenty of space to criticize Kamala Harris, but her blackness, come on, y'all. And now you got Ann Coulter piling on. Nah, I ain't with that. Again, not just for the abstract reason, but for a very concrete, practical reason.